She asked him to stop staring, not knowing he was trying to warn her about something important. Night had poured over the city with the same exhaustion that clung to Helena's shoulders. It was Friday, though that hadn't meant much for months now. One more day, one less. It all blurred into the same endless loop. Work, deadlines, presentations, meetings, pressure, and small mistakes that haunted her even in sleep. The world had lost its sharp edges, and she moved through it like someone walking through fog. That's why she stopped. Not to celebrate anything, not to distract herself from anyone, just to breathe. The bar sat quietly on a dimly lit corner, nestled between a shuttered cafe and an antique shop she had never seen open. Soft yellow lights spilled onto the sidewalk through sheer curtains, giving the interior a gentle, amber glow. And that night, it seemed to invite her in more tenderly than any human voice could. She pushed open the glass door, one hand still clutching her purse, and stepped inside. The air was warmer than the streets, filled with the faint scent of liquor, polished wood, and something distant that hinted at spices. The place wasn't crowded. The music played just loud enough to mask silence, but soft enough to allow conversation. Helena walked straight to the bar. Every inch of her body longed for some form of rest, any kind. The bartender, a slim man with a short beard and kind eyes, approached without haste. "Something strong?" he asked, with the kind of ease only someone well acquainted with weariness could muster. She paused. She didn't want something strong, she just wanted to exist for a few minutes without thinking about tomorrow. "Gin and tonic," she said, adjusting her bag strap. He nodded and began to mix the drink, while Helena leaned her elbows on the counter. Only then did she notice someone sitting not too far away, a man, maybe a little older than she was, or maybe just more worn. It was hard to tell at first glance. His hair was dark, slightly tousled, as if he'd run his hands through it more times than he should have that day. He wore a plain grey coat with no visible brand, and his shoulders were tense, as if carrying an invisible weight. But it wasn't his appearance that caught Helena's attention. It was his gaze. He was staring directly at her, not just looking, watching, with an intensity that pierced the space between them and landed on her with something almost tangible. There was no romantic interest in his eyes, no desire, but something stronger, urgency, a deep unrest, a kind of silent apprehension, like he had been waiting for her for a long time, and yet feared what would happen once he found her. Helena quickly looked away, focusing on the bartender as he placed the drink in front of her. She tried to shake off the uncomfortable sensation crawling up the back of her neck. Maybe she was imagining things. Maybe she was just so tired that any stranger's gaze felt like an intrusion. She took a deep breath, stirred the ice in her glass, and took a sip. The crisp taste spread across her tongue, and for a brief moment, the world seemed to turn down its volume, but the gaze returned. She felt it before she saw it, as if her skin could sense its direction, and when she looked up, he was still there, still watching, unblinking. Her grip on the glass tightened. The discomfort gave way to irritation. She met his eyes, hoping he'd take the hint, look away, feel awkward. Nothing. He held the stare, steady, firm, as if trying to communicate something she couldn't begin to decipher. She exhaled sharply, growing impatient. And then she did something she rarely did. She confronted someone. Rising slowly, drink in hand, she walked toward him with calm, deliberate steps. Up close, she noticed the fatigue in his eyelids, his bottom lip pressed hard as if restraining words, and a tension in his jaw that hinted at something long held back. He didn't avert his eyes for even a second. "Could you please stop staring?" she said, firm but not loud, more of a composed request than a direct attack. The man blinked for the first time since she'd approached. His breath caught for a split second, and when he opened his mouth to reply, his voice came out rough, hesitant, nearly choked. "I'm sorry. You don't understand. You need to—" She raised her hand, cutting him off. She didn't want explanations. She didn't want a strange speech from a stranger. She didn't want to deal with someone who seemed on the edge, or who might have mistaken her for someone else. "I just asked you to stop staring," she said calmly but with finality. He took a deep breath as if it hurt to do so. "It's not that simple," he murmured. For Helena, that was enough. She didn't want to continue, didn't want any involvement with someone who had inserted himself into her night without permission. She turned, walked back to the bar, placed a few bills beside her glass, and grabbed her purse. The desire to stay had vanished. What had once felt like a temporary refuge now felt uneasy, even oppressive. As she moved toward the door, a chill ran up her spine, from her heels to the back of her neck. She couldn't say for sure if it was because of the man, or simply the sense of being watched as she walked away. She pushed the door open, stepped out into the cold night, and let the sharp air fill her lungs with a sudden clarity. Inside, the man followed her with his eyes until the very last second. And when she finally disappeared from view, he exhaled, releasing a breath he seemed to have been holding for hours. And that's when he saw it. Lying on the floor beside the glass she'd left behind was a small object. He stood abruptly, almost knocking over his chair. Rushing over, he knelt down and picked it up gently, as if it were something fragile. When he turned it over in his hand, his expression changed, not to surprise, not to curiosity, to something worse. Fear. A fear so deep it drained the color from his face and hollowed his expression. And then, as if that object confirmed the very disaster he'd been trying so hard to prevent, the man closed his eyes, drew in a slow breath, and whispered to himself, "Not again. Not this time." He clenched the object in his hand, rose slowly to his feet, and walked to the exit. But he didn't leave. He stood there motionless, staring out into the street where Helena had vanished, as if knowing that every second lost might cost something he was not prepared to lose. The bar carried on, soft music still playing, a few patrons still chatting, the bartender quietly washing glasses and getting ready to close. Nothing in that quiet space reflected the gravity of what had just happened. Meanwhile, Helena walked down the street, unaware that she had left behind something far more important than a forgotten item. Something that tethered her to a past she had buried so deep, not even her dreams dared to reach it. And the man, standing at the door, knew this with bitter certainty. What she had forgotten was already on its way back to her. The next morning rose with a pale, muted glow that made the city look suspended in time, caught between waking and dreaming. It was the kind of light that stretched shadows and softened every distant sound. Helena woke with the strange sensation of having slept too little, even though the clock insisted she'd had nearly 8 hours of rest. Her body felt light, almost rested, but her mind carried a dense, unnameable weight, as if it had been running through mazes all night. She ran a hand through her hair, pushed the covers aside, and stood slowly, taking in the room she lived in. Everything looked too organized, too controlled, as if every item existed exactly where it did not out of habit, but out of necessity. Papers stacked in perfect symmetry on the desk, books arranged first by category, then by color, then by size, a spotless kitchen, no cup out of place. Nothing in that apartment suggested a spontaneous life. Everything looked curated by someone terrified of chaos. She walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge, and grabbed the yogurt she always ate for breakfast. But the moment she placed it on the counter, a sudden wave of strangeness washed over her. It felt like she was repeating motions that belonged to someone else, as if she had watched herself do this scene 100 times, but had never actually lived it. She brushed the thought away like one shoos a mosquito. Her mind must still be heavy from the night before, and from the man at the bar. His gaze lingered in her memory like an intrusive dream fragment, too intense, too direct. The way he'd looked at her, as if searching for something beneath her skin, it unsettled her. Or maybe it wasn't discomfort. Maybe it was something she didn't want to name yet. Spoon in hand, she glanced at her phone resting on the kitchen table. A notification blinked on the screen. Strange, she rarely received messages early. The few friends she had respected her routine, and no one from work would contact her before 9 unless it was a real emergency. She unlocked the screen and froze. At the top of the chat list was a conversation with herself, a message sent from her own number. Impossible. For a moment she thought it might be a glitch, some duplicated chat thread, but when she opened it, the words were clear. "You're late." Helena frowned, confused. The message had been sent at 6:53 a.m. She was asleep at that time. She placed the phone back on the table, took a deep breath, and waited to see if another notification would appear. Nothing. The silence of the apartment wrapped itself around her, but now it wasn't comforting. It felt expectant, hollow. She opened the chat history. Nothing before that message. No prior conversation. No indication the phone had been compromised. No sign she might have typed it in some exhausted trance. Helena never forgot things, never. People knew her for her impeccable memory. Meeting details, dates, clients' names, deadlines, entire conversations. Forgetting wasn't something she did. So why would she forget sending a message that made no sense? She inhaled slowly, closed the app, and tried to convince herself it was a technical glitch. But a faint thought rippled through her mind, quiet and unwelcome. It wasn't a glitch. She forced herself to ignore it, pocketed her phone and finished breakfast quickly. She needed to start her day. Clinging to something inexplicable wouldn't help. Exhaustion could twist perception, she knew. Stress could play tricks on memory. But even as she slung her bag over her shoulder and locked the door behind her, that uneasy feeling returned, persistent, tugging at her thoughts. Something felt off, as if she had awakened in a slightly altered version of her own life. In the elevator, she met the neighbor from the 7th floor, a woman who always walked a tiny, yapping dog. Their greetings were usually brief, stiff. But this time, when the elevator doors opened and the neighbor saw Helena, her face lit up as if greeting an old friend. "Good morning again, Helena," the woman said warmly, too warmly. "Again?" Helena asked, thrown off. "Yes, you passed by me earlier, don't you remember? You were in such a hurry you didn't even hear me." A cold shiver crawled down Helena's spine. The elevator seemed to descend slower than usual, almost dragging through time. She watched the woman's expression carefully. She looked sincere, completely. No trace of hesitation. But Helena knew she hadn't walked through that hallway earlier. She knew. Her alarm had shown the first ring of the morning. More importantly, her door had opened for the first time when she stepped out minutes ago. "I must be mistaken," the woman added quickly, noticing Helena's reaction. "These hallways all look the same, but I swear I saw you." Helena tried to smile, but her throat was too tight to let the expression form. The elevator doors opened on the ground floor, and the neighbor stepped out first, tugging her tiny dog that sniffed the floor as if searching for something hidden. Helena followed, but her eyes were distant. She couldn't shake the feeling that a loose thread had been pulled from her reality, one that tugged everything in unexpected directions. She walked out onto the street, letting the cold morning air clear her mind. Traffic was still light. She could hear hurried footsteps, engines humming, the occasional horn, everything perfectly ordinary. But normal, she realized, was a word that could hide too much. As she waited for the light to change, the sensation returned. Not something physical, an intuition, a quiet inner pull. The unmistakable feeling of being watched. She turned her head subtly and saw, across the street, the silhouette of the man from the bar. Gabriel. He stood leaning against a wall near a newsstand, hands in his pockets, eyes fixed on her. Helena didn't understand how she recognized him so quickly. Maybe it was the same intensity in his gaze from the night before. Or maybe something deeper inside her already knew, something just now rising to the surface. She didn't move. She merely held his stare for a few seconds. He didn't step forward, didn't look away, didn't try to speak. But something about his expression was different. Not insistence, not threat, hesitation, and a kind of concern that made no sense coming from a stranger. The light turned green. Helena crossed quickly, turning left to avoid passing too close to him. She didn't want contact, didn't want to give room for interpretation, didn't want to risk him finishing the sentence he had started at the bar. As she walked, a faint vibration came from inside her coat pocket. Her phone. She pulled it out quickly, expecting a work message or some random notification, but when she unlocked the screen, her blood ran cold. The same message had arrived again. "You're late." Same words, same punctuation, same tone. And this time, the timestamp matched the exact moment her eyes met Gabriel's across the street. She tightened her grip on the phone and drew in a shaky breath. Her heart pounded, not because of the message itself, but because of what it suggested. What she couldn't explain. Messages sent from her own number. A neighbor insisting she'd seen Helena when she hadn't left the apartment. A man who knew her full name without being told. The unshakable feeling of being watched. She looked back. Gabriel was gone. Vanished, as if he had never been there. She tried to convince herself she needed to focus on work. Anchor her mind in something logical, concrete, predictable. But as she walked toward the subway, something inside her rejected that rationale. Something whispered that none of this was coincidence, that there was a pattern beneath the surface, a thread leading somewhere she couldn't yet see. She entered the station, descended the stairs, listened to the rumble of the approaching train. Everything moved with its usual rhythm, people rushing, automated announcements echoing, the familiar hum of the platform. But when she stood before the train doors, she could have sworn she heard someone call her name. She spun around. People moved in every direction, but none were looking at her. She inhaled deeply and boarded, trying to steady herself. At work, the day unfolded in its usual cold, impersonal cadence. Endless meetings, reports stacking like walls, deadlines approaching like long shadows. Yet even immersed in tasks, the strangeness clung to her. It felt as if her mind lived in two realities at once, the surface-level normality of the office and a deeper current of signals trying desperately to reach her. During lunch, she finally decided to check the messages again. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe the server was unstable. Something rational, something explainable. But when she opened the chat, she noticed it instantly. The message from 6:53 a.m. was gone. Only the second one remained. No error messages. No system note. No trace of deletion. It was as if one of the messages had simply vanished, and not because of her. She set the phone on the break room table, an involuntary shiver crawling across her skin. The discomfort wasn't just mental, it moved through her like a cold wave. For a fleeting moment, she let herself consider the most unsettling possibility. The problem wasn't outside her, maybe it was inside. The afternoon dragged on until the end of her shift. By the time Helena stepped outside, the sky was already fading into dusk, brushed with soft golds and muted pinks that bled into the deeper shadows between the tall buildings. The wind had picked up, sweeping fallen leaves across the sidewalk in spirals. She pulled her coat tighter and headed toward the main street. As she rounded the corner toward the metro, she heard quick footsteps behind her. She turned, tense but relaxed when she saw it was just a man hurrying past, too preoccupied to notice her. Still, Helena's heartbeat didn't slow. A few meters ahead, she noticed another man walking toward her on the opposite side of the sidewalk. Not Gabriel. At least, he didn't seem to be. Taller, wearing a black coat, expression unreadable. But as he passed her, he murmured something barely audible. "Good afternoon, Helena." She froze. The man kept walking, never looking back. Her throat tightened. She didn't know him, had never seen him, but he knew her name. That much was unmistakable. She stepped back instinctively, trying to put distance between them, but he was already swallowed by the growing crowd near the metro entrance. The world around her continued moving with its usual rhythm, but her perception had shifted. Nothing felt stable anymore. Nothing felt clear. It was as if small cracks were forming in the surface of reality, revealing a glimpse of something she wasn't meant to understand yet. She inhaled deeply, and for the second time that day, scanned the streets for any sign of Gabriel. But he wasn't there. Maybe he truly wasn't. Or maybe he was watching from a distance, waiting. And then, in the exact moment her breath steadied, just for a heartbeat, she heard the faint sound of a phone being answered across the street. The voice was his. "I told you it would happen too fast," Gabriel said, tension threading through each word. He walked as he spoke, unaware she was watching. "I can't let it happen again. She has no idea what's coming back." Helena froze in place. He hung up and disappeared into the crowd. By the time she finally made her way home, night had settled completely. Her indirect encounter with Gabriel lingered like a shadow behind her thoughts. He hadn't spoken loudly, but the strain in his voice echoed in her mind like a warning she couldn't shut out. She has no idea what's coming back. That was the sentence she carried with her, an echo lodged deep in her chest. She walked from the metro to her street slowly, each step guided by an instinct assessing whether someone was nearby. The sensation of being watched had returned, sharper, clearer. She tried to convince herself the paranoia came from the strange day she'd had, but somewhere deep inside her, a quiet point of awareness stirred, something closer to recognition than fear. When she reached her building, she passed through the entrance hall. The doorman, calm, friendly, always polite, greeted her with his usual smile, but Helena noticed something she'd never seen before. He watched her for 1 second too long, as if confirming something only he could see. "Good evening, Helena," he said, exactly as he always did. "Good evening," she replied, steadying her voice. She entered the elevator, pressed the button for the 12th floor, and allowed herself to sink into silence. The elevator climbed with its same slow pace, but the air felt heavier, thicker. She looked at the metal panel and caught her reflection, pale, eyes slightly widened, lips pressed together. She looked like someone who had seen something too profound to understand. When the doors opened, she stepped out into the softly lit hallway. She adjusted her bag, reached for her keys, slipped them into the lock, but before she could turn them, she heard footsteps behind her. Slow, measured, the exact pace of someone who wasn't in a hurry, yet knew exactly where they were going. She turned. Gabriel stood halfway down the corridor. The light above illuminated only part of his face, leaving the other half hidden in shadow, making him even harder to read. He looked tired, exhausted even, but something in his stance was resolute, as if being there was unavoidable. Helena clenched her keys tightly in her hand. "Did you follow me?" she asked, trying to sound firm, though her voice trembled faintly. He took a deep breath before answering. He didn't move closer, didn't try to impose himself. He remained exactly at a distance that could be interpreted as safe. But his eyes, the same ones from the bar, held that strange blend of desperation and resolve she still couldn't decipher. "I'm not following you," he said, his calm sounding more tragic than reassuring. "I'm trying to reach you before something worse does." His words seemed caught between truth and fear. Helena took a step back. "You can't just show up like this. You can't watch me in the street. You can't know where I live, know my name, know God knows what else." Gabriel stepped forward just slightly, just enough for her to see him fighting against the urge to run to her. "Helena," he said softly, "I'm trying to protect you." She let out a strained, nervous laugh, one that sounded too brittle to belong to her. "Protect me from what?" "From you." He closed his eyes briefly, as if her words hit a place already bruised. He didn't look offended. He looked wounded. As if she'd said something he had heard before, in another time, in another life she couldn't remember. "No," he whispered. "From something you've forgotten." Helena gripped the door handle so tightly her knuckles turned white. She didn't know whether she wanted to escape into the safety of her apartment or stay and pull the truth from this man. All she knew was that his words were cracking something open inside her. "I don't know you," she said carefully. "You're a stranger. I have no reason to trust a single word you say, Gabriel lifted his face, and for a moment his eyes revealed a pain that didn't belong to that moment. It was old. It was deep. The kind of pain that only comes from having lost something once, and fearing losing it again was the only reason he still held on. "You did know me," he said softly. "More than you can imagine." Helena's breath caught. "I've never seen you in my life," she insisted. And that was when Gabriel's expression changed, not with emotion but with resolve. He knew she wasn't ready for the full truth, but there was something he could no longer keep from her, something that needed to be said. "Helena," he began, "your full name is Helena Duarte Ribeiro." She froze. That wasn't the name she used at work. It wasn't the name she gave to people. It wasn't even listed on her social media. It was her legal name, the one reserved for official documents. The name she almost never spoke aloud. Instinctively, she stepped back until her spine pressed against her own apartment door. "How do you know that?" she asked, her voice barely holding together. He didn't answer right away. It was as if he had to summon something from deep within to be able to speak. The hallway seemed to narrow around them, like it too was holding its breath. "You told me," he said finally. Her stomach dropped. The idea that she could have shared something that personal with him felt absurd. She didn't open herself like that. She never had. She didn't trust people enough. That simply wasn't who she was. But the way Gabriel said it, with a raw, almost painful honesty, made it nearly impossible to dismiss him entirely. "Is this some kind of game?" she asked. "Did you search for me? Investigate me? Track me somehow?" "No," he murmured. "I never investigated you. I lived." Helena blinked, confused. The sentence felt unfinished, like he deliberately left out the part that mattered most. "Enough," she said, trying to gather control. "I'm calling the police." "Helena, if you do that now," Gabriel started, but she cut him off. "I said enough." He stepped back as if his very presence might be seen as a threat. He lowered his head slightly, his breath uneven, caught between duty and the fear of saying too much. "I didn't come to hurt you," he said again, but this time with a new kind of conviction. "I came to warn you." She didn't want to hear it. Not now. Not like this. "Leave," she said, her voice low, not out of certainty, but because she didn't know how to handle the growing sense that something inside her was beginning to stir. Gabriel looked at her for a few long, quiet seconds, his gaze intense, as if trying to memorize every feature of her face before something irreversible occurred. Then he took 2 steps back, eyes still locked on hers. "I'll leave," he said, "but that won't protect you. Not from me. Not from yourself." Helena felt her knees weaken beneath her. "You don't know anything about me," she said, though even to her own ears, the words sounded hollow. "I know enough," Gabriel replied. "Enough to be afraid for you." They stood in silence for a long moment. A heavy, almost pressurized silence that made the air in the hallway feel like glass on the verge of shattering. Gabriel turned and began walking toward the elevator. His steps were steady but slow, as if each one cost him something. When he pressed the button, he looked back at her one last time. "It's not pursuit, Helena," he murmured. "It's regret." The doors slid open. He stepped inside. And just before they closed completely, he spoke again. So softly, she barely caught it. "I failed you once. I won't fail again." The doors sealed shut. Helena remained frozen in front of her own door, heart pounding so hard it echoed in her ears. Her mind swung violently between rejecting everything he'd said and trying to make sense of it. But the worst part wasn't the confusion. It was the quiet, unsettling, almost imperceptible sense that he hadn't been lying. That this story was old. Too old. And that somewhere deep inside her, a part of her already knew. She finally turned the key and stepped into her apartment. She let her bag fall to the floor, braced her hands against the wall, and forced her breath out in shaky waves. She tried to replay the conversation, but parts of it felt slippery, like her memory had suddenly grown porous. She walked to the kitchen sink and splashed cold water on her face, trying to steady herself. But when she lifted her gaze to the small mirror beside the fridge, a chill tore down her spine. Behind her in the reflection, on the table where she'd dropped her bag, there was an envelope. It hadn't been there when she left that morning. No one else had a key. No one could have come in. She turned slowly, approached the table the way someone approaches a secret they never asked to uncover. The envelope was plain, white, unmarked, only her name written by hand in a script that was firm, familiar. Helena. But not in the shortened form she used at work, not the name she shared lightly. It was written in full, her complete name, the one almost no one knew, and in the corner, discreet and unmistakable, was a final detail that made her blood turn cold. Gabriel. She picked up the envelope carefully, as if the paper itself might burn her. The flap was sealed. It didn't look hurried, it looked placed with intention. She opened it. Inside was a single sentence, written in that same precise handwriting. "If you don't remember me, everything will happen again." Helena let the envelope slip from her fingers onto the table. The entire room seemed to shrink. The air thickened, the lights dimmed around her, and for the first time, she felt something she couldn't name. Not fear, not anger, recognition. Something in her understood that the warning wasn't metaphor, wasn't manipulation, wasn't exaggeration. It was memory, but a memory locked so deep she no longer had the key. And there, alone, holding the envelope while the distant hum of the city filtered through the window, Helena realized she wasn't dealing with coincidences anymore. She was standing at the threshold of something she had spent her entire life trying to avoid. The previous night clung to Helena's mind like a string of disjointed images. The encounter in the hallway, Gabriel's words, the envelope in her apartment. None of it made logical sense, but still she kept trying to squeeze each piece into a frame of rationality. Even as a quiet part of her began to admit, this no longer fit within any version of normal she had ever known. She barely slept, woke up more exhausted than when she'd gone to bed. Grey light filtered through the slits in the curtains, casting a cold glow across the room. Helena rose slowly, her body mirroring the unrest inside her mind. She walked to the bathroom, splashed water on her face, and returned to the bedroom, trying to breathe a little deeper into her chest. The envelope was still on the table. She avoided it, like one avoids a forgotten blade. She knew if she read that message again, whatever fragile hold she had on herself would splinter. Better to pretend it wasn't there, even though, in truth, it occupied more space inside her than any object in the room. She attempted to make breakfast, but appetite was absent. She sipped a little water, dressed mechanically for work, grabbed her keys, phone, bag, and just before opening the door, she paused, looked into the emptiness of the living room as though expecting something, someone, to stir. Nothing moved. The silence was absolute. She left. The hallway was deserted. Lights cast long shadows across the floor. Helena walked to the elevator and descended quickly as if speed alone could shake off the thought that had haunted her since last night, that Gabriel hadn't been making anything up, that he spoke with the pain of someone who had already seen something terrible unfold. The same doorman greeted her at the entrance, and for a moment she caught a flicker in his eyes. Something like recognition. She noticed it, but said nothing. She walked into the street with quick steps, trying to outrun the feeling that she'd crossed some invisible boundary. The wind was colder now, which helped keep her mind sharp, but as she rounded a corner, the air felt different, not in temperature, but in weight, as if a new layer of silence had settled between her and the world. She glanced around, subtly. Nothing unusual. People hurrying, cars driving by, distant conversations. But she felt it. A presence. The same eerie awareness she'd had when Gabriel first reappeared. She pushed it down, kept walking toward the main road. At the bus stop, she pulled out her phone to check for work messages. Nothing urgent. But then the air around her shifted again, this time with a jolt. The message had come through again, same words, same time, same content. "You're late." Only this time, the timestamp matched the moment precisely. 8:12. Her phone read exactly 8:12, not a second before or after. A chill ran through her. This wasn't coincidence, it was coordination. As if someone was timing the message to strike the moment she felt herself beginning to stabilize. She shoved the phone into her coat pocket, wiped her forehead, and took a deep breath. Just get to work. Focus. Stay busy. Sanity lives in the details, the schedules, the order. That was how she had always survived. The bus arrived, crowded as usual, and Helena climbed aboard with difficulty. She stood, gripping one of the metal poles, surrounded by people yet feeling completely alone. The vehicle lurched through traffic, its typical stuttered rhythm keeping her anchored in her body. Every jolt, every sudden break forced her to readjust. Better to feel the ground moving under her feet than her mind spinning out in every direction. But then the bus took a sharp turn, and Helena felt it again. Not a whisper, not a flicker. This was solid, physical. A visceral awareness in her body before her mind could catch up. Someone was watching her. She lifted her eyes, and outside on the sidewalk she saw him. Too far to make out his face, but unmistakable. The grey coat, the closed-off posture, the tight shoulders. Gabriel. She didn't know how he kept finding her. She'd left early, taken her usual route. And yet, he was always there, one step ahead, like he knew exactly where she would be. The bus moved on, and his figure vanished behind buildings. Helena barely had time to process before the driver slammed the brakes. Everyone lunged forward. She caught herself just in time, but someone bumped into her, and she stumbled sideways, nearly losing balance. The bus halted abruptly in the middle of the street. The driver was shouting something, but Helena couldn't make it out over the noise of the passengers. A car had swerved into the right lane, barreling toward the bus. It had run a red light and sped through the intersection, missing them by inches. Outside, traffic dissolved into chaos, horns blaring, screeching tires, shouting. The bus doors hissed open, and passengers began exiting in waves of protest. Helena was about to step off too when she heard it. Footsteps, fast, running toward her. She turned. Gabriel was coming. Not walking, running, like fire was behind him. Before she could react, he grabbed her arm, not with violence, but with urgency. Under any other circumstance, she would have fought back, pulled away, shouted. But the shock, the noise, the near collision, it stole her response. "Get off the bus. Now," he said, breathless. She hesitated for half a second. His grip tightened. "Please." The please wasn't commanding, it was afraid. She stepped off with him, still stunned. The bus remained stalled, passengers still pouring out, the street a storm of motion and confusion. And then she noticed something. The car that had nearly caused the accident had stopped a few meters ahead. The windows were too dark, too opaque. There was no way to see the driver, but someone was watching. It was a sensation that settled into Helena's mind. A silent certainty, almost instinctive. A presence that recognized her. A presence that shouldn't be there. "Don't look back," Gabriel said, his voice so low it felt like a breath. "Just come." She wasn't one to obey easily. She didn't follow anyone's lead. But there was something in his voice, tension, urgency, vulnerability, that made her take a few steps. Then came the sound. The sharp click of a car door being opened. She turned before Gabriel could stop her. From inside the car, a figure emerged. Tall, movements too slow, a face she couldn't quite see. But that made her whole body react, like it was facing an old memory. A memory not conscious but visceral. Something inside her screamed that she knew that silhouette. "Helena, no," Gabriel whispered, stepping closer to her. She didn't feel immediate fear. She felt something worse, a recognition that shouldn't exist. The car sped away before she could fully make out the face. It vanished into the chaos of traffic. Gabriel gripped her shoulder like someone trying to stop another from falling off a cliff. "That's what I'm trying to protect you from," he said, breathless. That's what I've been trying to warn you about." Helena was struggling to breathe as if the air had thickened around her. Who was that person?" she asked, her voice trembling. Gabriel hesitated, and she saw it. He knew. He knew exactly who it was. When he didn't answer, she took a step back. "You're hiding things from me," Helena said, her voice tight with panic and anger. "I'm trying to give you time," he replied. "If I tell you everything now, you won't believe me. You'll reject it, you'll run, and I'll lose you again." "Again?" she repeated, the word landing like a blow. Gabriel closed his eyes, and in that instant she saw. It wasn't guilt. It was pain. A pain so deep, it felt ancient. "I don't know who you are," she whispered, "but you know things about me. Things you shouldn't." Gabriel took a breath, bracing himself. Then finally he said something that shattered the ground beneath her feet. "Because I was there." The words hung in the air, dense, heavy, loaded with a meaning she couldn't quite grasp. "There where?" she asked, barely audible. "When everything happened," he said. "When you asked to forget." Her breath caught. Something inside her recoiled, as if a hidden door had just been flung open. Helena unconsciously placed her hand on her chest. Her heart was racing, pounding like it was trying to break through her ribs. "I didn't ask for that," she said, denying it. But Gabriel stepped closer, slowly. "Not in words," he murmured, "but you did." She was about to protest when something fell from his pocket. A small metallic object hit the ground with a soft clink. She recognized it instantly. Helena knelt down on instinct, picked it up, and turned it in her palm. Her own keychain. Not a similar one, not the same model. Hers, with the worn spot near the tip, with the side scratch, with the tiny dent caused by a fall years ago. A fall she remembered clearly. She looked up at Gabriel, speechless. "I didn't steal it," he said quietly. "You gave it to me." The words hit Helena like a punch, because for a moment just a flicker and something inside her stirred, as if that phrase, spoken in that voice, belonged to a forgotten moment, a memory without image, a memory made only of sensation. And the sensation was real. Helena stepped back, stunned, the keychain still in her hand. I've never seen you before," she said, but the words came out too weak, almost unconvincing. Gabriel looked at her with a sorrow that disarmed her. "That's not true," he whispered. "You've seen me many times before you chose to forget." The silence between them grew, swallowing everything. And then, as if this revelation were just the surface of something far deeper, Helena realized her life had split into two parallel lines, what she remembered and what she didn't, and one of those lines was about to break. Helena's walk home that night unfolded in absolute silence, as if each step echoed through a tunnel. The city pulsed around her, horns, engines, voices on the street, lights from shop windows and headlights slicing through the dark. But she registered none of it clearly. It felt like walking inside a glass bubble, separated from the world. The keychain, the object Gabriel claimed she had once given him. The moment he said all of this had happened before. The more she tried to piece those events together, the more her memory felt like a surface of cracked glass, moments away from shattering. When she reached her building, the doorman greeted her as usual, but she didn't reply. She rode the elevator staring at nothing. When she entered the apartment, she closed the door slowly, as if trying to stop the world from slipping in behind her. She leaned against the wood, letting her weight fall, her heartbeat erratic, struggling to find rhythm. The living room was dark and silent. Only the glow of streetlights slipped through the curtains. She dropped her bag and walked to the table without turning on the lights. The envelope was still there, exactly where she'd left it. A cruel reminder that none of this was imagined. She took a breath, stepped closer, and touched the edge of the paper with her fingertips. It was real as the weight slowly forming inside her. Trying to stay calm, she sat on the couch, pulled her knees close, and attempted to build a logical narrative. But whenever she thought of Gabriel, Her body, not her mind, responded with involuntary recognition. A subtle tremor at the base of her neck, a strange pull, a sense of deep, unsettling familiarity. She hated it. It made no sense. She closed her eyes, trying to regulate her breath, but a wave of nausea rose through her chest. Thoughts shot through her like stray arrows: the car that nearly crashed, the figure who stepped out, the visceral feeling she knew them. And beneath it all, Gabriel's voice. A voice that spoke not just with knowledge, but with emotional precision, like he understood things about her she hadn't even discovered herself. Knowing things was one thing. Feeling things, that was far more disturbing. Eventually, she stood up and headed to the bathroom. She needed to splash cold water on her face. Maybe take a shower. Something physical to interrupt the spiral. She turned on the light and faced her reflection. Her face looked the same, but the eyes held something different. Tension that went beyond exhaustion. It was like there was a shadow behind her pupils, a tiny displacement only someone who knew herself deeply would notice. She touched the mirror with her fingertips. The reflection mirrored the gesture perfectly, and still she couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right, not with the reflection, but with what was behind it. Running her hand through her hair, she left the bathroom and walked slowly toward the bedroom. That's when it happened, the first concrete lapse in memory. She looked at the dresser. There was a vase with dried flowers on top, flowers she didn't remember buying. She moved closer, touching one of the brittle stems. They'd been dry for weeks, maybe months, but Helena knew. If something like that was in her apartment, she would remember. She was meticulous. Always had a mental record of even the smallest changes in her space. Her hands started to shake. She searched for rational explanations. Maybe she'd received them and forgotten. Maybe she'd bought them on a particularly exhausting day. But nothing fit. Nothing justified that blank spot in her mind. And for a moment, the feeling of being split between two timelines grew stronger. Helena stepped back. And then something even stranger happened. Her phone vibrated in the living room. But she hadn't left it there. It was in her bag. She remembered clearly putting it away when she came in. Her breath quickened. She walked slowly to the device. The phone was on the table, right next to Gabriel's envelope. As she picked it up, she felt a warmth in her palm, as if someone had just been holding it. The screen lit up. A new message. This time it wasn't the same phrase. "You shouldn't be alone." Helena dropped the phone back on the table like it burned her. Silence filled the room again. But it wasn't just silence anymore. It had mass now. A weight. A pressure in the air like something invisible was spreading across the apartment. She began moving through the space, opening doors, checking rooms. She knew it was irrational, but she had to be sure. The fear wasn't paranoia. It was primal. Something inside her insisted the message wasn't just a warning. In the kitchen, she turned on the light and saw something even more unsettling. The glass she'd left in the sink the day before was clean, dry, put away in the cabinet. She was certain she hadn't done it, and no one else had access to her apartment. Her mind began spinning in circles. Could she be forgetting things, cleaning automatically without realizing, operating on some kind of dissociative loop? Stress? Burnout? A dissociative episode? But before any theory could fully form, something pulled her attention. A sound, so faint it was almost imaginary. Like wood creaking, from the living room. Helena stepped out, careful and slow, only breathing when she had to. As she neared the hallway, she noticed something was off. The streetlights cast deeper shadows than usual, as if a silhouette had passed near the window. When she stepped into the living room, no one was there. But the envelope had moved a few centimeters to the right. She froze, a chill running down her spine. Maybe she'd bumped it. Maybe she nudged it when picking up the phone. Maybe the wind, but the window was closed, locked. She checked the latch. It hadn't been touched. None of this made sense. And that's when it hit, the first clear déjà vu of the night. For a few seconds, brief but intense, Helena saw the living room differently, not just as it was now, but as it had been. The sofa slightly more to the left, A lamp in the corner that no longer existed, lit and warm, and the shadow of someone, maybe herself, crossing the room in hurried steps. The vision vanished in a blink, but when she opened her eyes, everything was back to normal. Her heart pounded like it was trying to escape. Her mind searched for explanations, fatigue, imagination, overload. But deep down, Helena knew this wasn't an ordinary déjà vu. It was a fragmented memory. A glimpse from a past she no longer recognized. A past that now seemed intent on pulling her back into itself. She took a deep breath and decided she needed to leave, even just for a few minutes. She grabbed her coat, her bag, her keys, her phone. She was about to open the door when she heard something behind her, the sound of paper brushing against wood. She turned slowly. The envelope, once resting on the table, was now on the floor, lying right at her feet. Helena closed her eyes, trying to contain the panic rising like a wild animal inside her. She crouched, picked up the envelope with trembling hands and placed it back on the table. She needed air. She needed out. She opened the door, locked it behind her, and took the stairs and refusing to wait for the elevator. Each floor felt longer than the last, but the descent worked like a purge, shaking off some of the mental weight that had built up inside her. When she finally reached the street, the cold wind hit her face with immediate relief. The sky was dark, speckled with the city's scattered lights. She walked aimlessly, just to keep moving, just to stop herself from falling apart. But it didn't take long before she felt it again, the presence, the same pulse in the air that always preceded Gabriel, a subtle vibration, a nameless instinct. And when she turned the corner, there he was, standing on the sidewalk, arms crossed, as if he'd been waiting for her. Helena froze a few meters away, her whole body tense, torn between running and confronting him. Gabriel took one step forward, nothing more. But his posture didn't hold threat. It held urgency. "You're not well," he said softly. "It's starting." Helena stared at him, a mix of fear and fury in her eyes. "What's starting?" she asked, her voice cracking. Gabriel stepped a little closer, still careful not to touch her. "What you tried to avoid," he said. "What you asked to forget." She shook her head. "I didn't erase anything from my memory." Gabriel's eyes didn't flinch. "You did." "Stop saying that," she whispered, her chest tightening. "Stop pretending you know me." Gabriel inhaled deeply, like someone carrying a truth that had become a burden over time. "Helena, what's happening inside your apartment? It's not coincidence. It's not stress. It's not your imagination. It's your memory trying to come back." She took a step back. "I didn't ask to forget anything." "You did," he said, quietly but firmly. "You did it because you thought you wouldn't survive what you lived." Her legs wobbled. "You're lying." "I'm trying to save you," he replied. The wind blew stronger between them, sweeping dust and dry leaves across the pavement. Helena looked at Gabriel like one might look at a ghost, half real, half impossible. "If I forgot," she said, voice barely audible, "then why is it all coming back now?" Gabriel didn't respond right away, because he'd hoped she could handle it without the pain, without the collapse. But when he finally spoke, the words were far darker than she was ready to hear. "Because he's back." The blood drained from Helena's face, the man from the car, the stranger on the street, the memory gaps, the envelope. "Who?" she asked, though she already feared the answer. Gabriel didn't soften the truth. "The one you spent years avoiding, the one who made you ask to forget." The silence between them stretched endlessly, and then Helena gave the only response she could, honest and completely shattered. "I don't know what you're talking about." Gabriel looked at her, pain in his eyes. "Real pain, old pain. I know," he said. "That's the problem." And before she could run, before she could resist or retreat, he added, "You're starting to remember, even though you swore you didn't want to." The night was colder than usual when Helena finally gave in. Not to Gabriel, not to the circumstances, but to her own body. Her breath was uneven, her heart pounded like it was trying to escape through her ribs, and the sense that her memories were like a corrupted file only grew stronger. She was exhausted, tired of denying what she couldn't explain, tired of running from something that seemed to have started long before she was ever aware of it. Across the street, Gabriel watched her, with no trace of victory. Only tension, the kind of restraint that belongs to someone about to touch a wound far too old. There was no eagerness to convince her, only the fear of hurting her. Helena noticed it not from his words, but from the way he held his own wrist, as if keeping his hands away from her was a gesture of respect. "You don't have to say anything," he said, taking a step back instead of forward. "Just listen. That's all." Helena could feel the wind cutting through the fabric of her coat, but the cold seemed to come from inside, as if something had been awakened under her skin, an internal presence that was never meant to be stirred. She took a deep breath, still unsure, but her body seemed to accept it before her mind did. "Speak," she whispered, her voice rough. Gabriel paused for a few seconds before starting. Helena could tell he was choosing every word with the care of someone walking through a minefield he knew by heart. "I want to start from the beginning," he said, "but you won't remember it. Not yet." She crossed her arms instinctively, more for emotional protection than anything else. "Then try," she replied, eyes locked on him. "If it's true you know me like you say, start from the beginning." Gabriel nodded slowly, like someone bracing for impact, for both of them. He looked toward the empty sidewalk, as if trying to anchor his memory to something fixed in space. "I met you 3 years ago," he began. "It wasn't by chance. It wasn't a normal situation, but it also wasn't in this version of you." Helena frowned. The sentence hit like a silent blow. "Version?" she repeated. "Yes, because you've changed more than you think. So deeply that sometimes when I look at you now, it's like I see a completely different person, and yet exactly the same." Her breath caught in her chest. There was something in that contradiction that echoed inside her, like a mechanism beginning to unlock. "I'm not two people," she said, trying to sound steady. "You're not," he agreed, "but you lived 2 lives, one before what happened and one after." A subtle tremor ran through her fingers, as if something was trying to escape from them. "You're talking like I erased half my life." Gabriel held her gaze. "You erased more than that." Helena stepped back. He didn't follow. "We met when you were going through something difficult, really difficult, but you never wanted to admit it. You faced everything with a kind of strength that bordered on recklessness. You fought against everything, even the truth." She didn't recognize that version of herself, but the most disturbing part wasn't that she didn't recognize it. It was the strange echo inside her, as if those words had been said to her before, in another time. "I don't know what you're talking about," she insisted, voice less firm now. Gabriel took a breath. "The man in the car, you know who he is, even if you don't consciously remember. The body remembers first. The mind tries to protect." Helena shivered. That image, the figure stepping out of the car that morning, was burned into her vision. A shadow, a shape, a presence that had triggered a reaction without any logic. No immediate fear, no surprise, but an instinctual, primal recognition. "Who is he?" she asked. "And why does he affect me like that if I don't remember him?" Gabriel hesitated before answering. "He's someone you spent years trying to forget, and when you couldn't, you asked for it to be taken from you." Helena felt the ground tilt beneath her. "I would never ask for something like that," she whispered. "You did," Gabriel said gently, like someone trying to remind her of a painful promise. "You thought you wouldn't survive if you remembered. You thought it would be better to move on with emptiness than with that kind of pain." Her breathing faltered. The world around her grew hazy. "And you were there?" she asked, her voice suddenly small, childlike. Gabriel nodded. "I was." "Why?" she asked. "Why would you be part of something like that? He swallowed hard, and for the first time Helena noticed that he was shaking too. "Because you asked me to," he said, "and because I loved you." The words dropped between them like a heavy, dark weight, impossible to absorb all at once. The silence that followed was so thick it seemed to change the very shape of the air. Helena felt a sudden flush rise to her face, not from emotion, but from shock. Deep, inexplicable. I couldn't have asked that," she murmured. "It doesn't make sense." Gabriel pressed his palm to his forehead, as though trying to steady his breath. "I know it doesn't make sense. I know that, for the version of you that exists now, this seems impossible. But for the one who made that choice, it was the only path." Helena placed her hand on her chest, as if calming an overstrained muscle. "And you? What was your part in all of this?" He lifted his eyes to hers, his expression devastating. "Mine was to tend what remained of you," he said with quiet honesty, "even if that meant staying away, even if you never recognized me again, even if you never knew who I was to you." She took a few steps back, breathing shallowly. The street was nearly empty, the stillness of the night amplifying everything. Papers scattered across the pavement, the distant hum of a passing car. It felt like they were in a bubble apart from the world. "Why did you come back now?" she asked, voice low. "Why is all this happening again now?" "Because he came back first," Gabriel answered. "And because you started to remember, despite your will." Helena ran her hand over her face, feeling warmth rise behind her eyelids. She wasn't crying, and not yet, but the accumulated emotions threatened every remaining guard she had. "You're saying I relived something so horrible I asked to erase it? That I made that decision alone?" Gabriel looked at her for long seconds before replying. "It wasn't alone," he explained. "I was there and I told you it was a bad idea, but you insisted. You said you didn't want to carry that memory anymore." She shook her head. "I don't believe you." Gabriel stepped forward but stopped before he reached her. "Then let me show you something." Helena didn't speak. Gabriel placed his hand inside his coat pocket, removed a small object wrapped in cloth. He opened it with care, as though something fragile lay within. Then he offered it toward her, without touching her. It was a photograph, old, slightly worn at the edges, but sharp and clear in the center. Helena took it hesitantly. When her eyes fell on the image, the sensation that swept through her wasn't simple shock. It was vertigo. In the photo, she was there, smiling, beside Gabriel, with an intimacy that did not exist in the present, a nearness neither version of her could have conjured. Gabriel's arm around her shoulders, her hand in his, and her smile, alive, carefree, almost radiant, something she did not recognize anymore. Not then. Maybe not since long before all of this began. She needed the lamppost to steady herself. "I don't remember this," she began weakly. "I've never been in this place. This outfit, this smile. Her words faltered when her breath caught. Gabriel's voice remained calm, though she could feel the emotional tremor behind it. "You asked me to keep this photo," he said. "You said that when the right moment came, I should show it." "The right moment for what?" she asked, voice cracked. "To make you believe me." Helena pressed the photo in her hands, as if trying to squeeze a memory out of it. But nothing emerged except an echo in the distance, a shadow beyond the fog. "There are more," Gabriel lowered his tone, "many more. But you asked me not to give them back until you were ready." She looked at him, blending disbelief with a hunger for answers. "I'm not ready now." "I know," he admitted. "But you're beginning to be." Helena felt her heart contract. "Why would I do this?" she asked. "Why ask to forget you too, if you were someone I trusted, someone I apparently was close to?" Gabriel closed his eyes for a moment. "Because when it all happened, I was too close," he said, each syllable full of pain. "Being close to me meant remembering the other, and you didn't want to, you couldn't, so you erased both." Her throat dry. The revelation weighed like lead. "And now, she whispered. "Why is everything coming back?" Gabriel looked at her with grave intensity. "Because you're in danger again," he said, "and this time forgetting won't save you." The silence that followed felt longer than any conversation. Helena felt the cold air brush her skin. She felt the bracelet on her wrist. She felt the weight of the photo in her hand. She felt her body reacting before her mind did. And for the first time, she didn't run from the question. What exactly did I forget? Gabriel seemed to sense her inner shift. He stepped closer, not crossing the invisible boundary between them. "If you want, I can tell you what happened," he said, "but some things you'll have to remember yourself, or you'll keep doubting me forever." Helena took a deep breath. "And if I don't want to remember?" she asked. Gabriel held her gaze. "Then sooner or later, he will remind you." The sentence hit Helena harder than anything before. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a warning. It was a fact. She stared at Gabriel as though she was seeing the first solid truth amidst the chaos, and finally said, "Speak. Tell me what you can, what I can bear." Gabriel drew a slow breath, as if preparing for a deep dive. Everything started the night you almost died. The night had stretched just enough for the streets to seem almost deserted, but not abandoned. Streetlights cast uneven circles of light on the pavement, and between them lay long strips of shadow, as if pieces of the city had fallen asleep. Helena and Gabriel walked slowly, without a clear destination, two people carrying between them a story heavier than any path they could take. Helena held the photo in her hands. The paper bent slightly under her fingers, and she turned it over from time to time, as if trying to extract meaning from every inch of it. The smile she saw there wasn't just younger. It was lighter, like it carried fewer layers. The version of herself in that photo didn't resemble the woman walking now, tense, her steps hushed, her thoughts relentless. "I was smiling," Helena said at last, breaking the silence. "In a way I haven't smiled in years." "You used to smile more than you thought," Gabriel replied. He wasn't looking at her. His eyes scanned the street ahead, alert to empty spaces, to shadows shifting with the wind. "But you also hid behind that smile." "I don't remember that either," she said, eyes still on the photo. "Almost nothing from that time is easy to remember. And not because you can't, it's because you blocked everything connected to it." She drew a long breath and tucked the photo into her coat pocket, protecting it from the wind. "You said everything started when I almost died." "Yes." "What exactly happened?" Gabriel didn't respond immediately, not out of hesitation, but careful calculation. Helena could tell he was treading a delicate line, say enough to keep danger at bay, but not so much that she would run from her own story. Each step he took was as if he was shielding her from herself. "I want to know," she said, "even if it hurts, even if I don't understand it all." He finally looked at her. There was pride in his eyes, and fear. "I'm not trying to hurt you," he said softly, "but truth hurts." "I'm already hurt," she replied. They walked on. Helena didn't realize they were on the same street they had walked together years ago, a street she no longer remembered. The wind danced between them, dragging dry leaves along the ground. "The first thing you need to understand," he began, "is that you weren't the person you believe you are now. You were more impulsive, braver, but also more vulnerable." "Vulnerable how?" "You trusted the wrong people," Gabriel said, "and doubted the ones who tried to help you, including me." Helena lowered her gaze, letting the words sink in. "I trusted someone who hurt me." "You did," he confirmed, "and by the time you saw who he really was, you were in too deep." She closed her eyes, feeling the edge of memory close, just beyond reach. She saw scattered flashes, someone's hand gripping her arm too hard, a door slamming, a voice raised in anger, but nothing sharp enough to be called memory. "Who was he?" she asked. "Someone you thought you loved?" "Someone who seemed perfect at first. He knew exactly how to get close, how to take space in your mind, and once he was in, he never left. And I didn't notice. You did, but too late. She swallowed hard. When things started to collapse, Gabriel continued, you pretended everything was fine. You pretended for me, for your friends, for yourself. But I could see something inside you was breaking. Her breathing quickened. Her body was reacting before her mind could keep up. And then, he said, voice dropping, there was that night. What happened that night? She asked. You fought with him, a serious fight, the kind that turns violent without a single hand being raised. He broke something. You tried to leave. He locked the door. Her hand moved to her neck, instinctive, as if trying to release invisible pressure. I remember something like that, she asked, uncertain. Not consciously, but your body remembers. And you, were you there? I got there after. He had left you alone. You were on the floor bleeding from a cut on your forehead. You called me right before passing out. I crossed the city to find you. Her eyes widened. I called you. You did. Why? Because deep down, you trusted me, even when you said you didn't. Helena said nothing. The street around them seemed to absorb the weight of the moment. The streetlights hummed softly. A car rolled by slowly in the distance, its headlights casting pale beams across the sidewalk. When I found you, you were unconscious. I took you to the hospital, stayed with you all night, and the next day when you woke up, you told me you didn't want him in your life anymore. You asked me to help you disappear from his. Helena touched her forehead, searching for a scar that might have marked that night, but her skin was smooth. Gabriel noticed the gesture. It faded over time, he said. But it was real. I remember the blood running down your face. She swallowed. So why would I erase that? Why forget something that would protect me from him? Because he came back, Gabriel answered. He disappeared for a while, but when he showed up again, you panicked. You believed he'd never let you go, that he'd always find a way back. Helena felt a chill crawl up the back of her neck. And that's when you asked someone to make you forget, Gabriel finished. Forget what? She asked, her voice trembling. Him, Gabriel said, and me. She took 2 steps back. Why you? Because I was the bridge between you two, the one who knew everything, the one who helped you leave him. You said you'd never be able to move on if you saw me again, because looking at me meant remembering him, remembering what he did to you, remembering the person you were when you were with him. Helena's legs weakened beneath her. And you agreed to that? She asked. I agreed because you were trapped in a state I'd never seen before, Gabriel said, and his voice carried the weight of a past he was reliving in real time. You were shaking all the time. You couldn't breathe right. You had nightmares. You said you wanted to disappear, that you didn't recognize yourself anymore, and when you asked to erase everything, I didn't have the heart to stop you. She breathed like the air itself had thickened. But why erase you too? I still don't understand. Because I was the strongest memory of what happened. I was the witness. I was the thread connecting you to the worst night of your life. I was the one holding your hand in that hospital, and the next day you couldn't even look at me, because looking at me was looking at the pain. Helena raised a hand to her face. So you disappeared? She asked. I did. Because you asked. You said you didn't want anything from your old life. You said you needed to start over. That if I tried to stay, the weight of the memories would break you. She shut her eyes tightly. And what about him? She asked. Where did he go? He stayed away for a while, maybe out of guilt, maybe out of fear. But he never really left. I always knew he was watching from a distance, waiting for the right moment. He doesn't tolerate being forgotten. Helena opened her eyes. And now he's back. He came back because he thinks you're vulnerable again. Am I? She asked. Gabriel didn't answer right away, but his silence said more than words could. You're remembering fragments without knowing what to do with them, he said. You're having lapses, déjà vu, incomplete sensations. That makes you exposed. Helena stared at the ground. Silence stretched between them. Not hostile, but dense, heavy with fractured memories, broken emotions, and a past approaching like a quiet predator. "You said I needed to remember some things on my own," she said. "That not everything could be told. Why? Because if I tell you everything, you'll reject it. You'll protect yourself from the truth that once destroyed you. The mind doesn't work like a file. It fights to preserve what's left." "And what's left?" she asked. "What's left of me after erasing all that?" Gabriel looked at her with an expression so raw, so human, it made her breath catch. "What's left," he said, "is the part of you that still knows how to trust, even without remembering. Even without knowing. The part of you that called me that night and is still there." Helena looked away, too intense, too much. But as she turned, something in the shop window beside them caught her eye. A shadow, behind her. Not Gabriel's, another. She turned immediately. Nothing. The street was empty. But the feeling didn't leave. It grew stronger. "Someone's here," she whispered. Gabriel's body tensed instantly. His posture shifted. His breathing changed. He became alert in a way that didn't need explanation. "Keep walking," he said, voice low but sharp. "Slow." She nodded, matching his pace. Their steps echoed on the quiet sidewalk, the tension rising with each one. "Please," she said, eyes forward. "Tell me more. Help me understand what's coming. What's returning." Gabriel didn't look at her as he answered. "What's coming back," he said, "is everything you tried to bury, and part of that is yourself." Helena stopped. Gabriel stopped too. "Myself?" she asked, her heart racing. "You erased the memories, but not what they did to you, not what you became because of them, and now both versions of you are starting to meet." Helena swallowed hard. The world tilted around her like a boat adrift. "And when they fully meet?" she asked. Gabriel hesitated, then answered with the kind of truth that cut through the night like a blade. "It's going to hurt, but that's the only way you'll survive what's coming." Helena felt her hands begin to tremble. It wasn't fear of the danger outside. It was fear of what she might find inside herself. "And you?" she asked. "What's your role now, after everything?" Gabriel looked at her for a long moment. Then he spoke the sentence he had carried for years. "To be what I was from the start, someone who never should have left, but did, for you." The silence that followed felt almost physical. So intimate it seemed to take shape in the cold night air. And then Helena did something she hadn't expected of herself, something that an older part of her, buried but not dead, might have once done. Something her forgotten memory would have known instantly. She took a step toward him, a small one, but enough to close an emotional distance that had grown since the day she chose to forget. "I want to know who I was," she said, "but I'm afraid of what I'll find." Gabriel looked at her like he was seeing the woman he once knew, through a fog. "I'm afraid too," he admitted, "but I'm here now and I'm not leaving again." The words cut through the wind like a quiet vow, and in that moment, standing on the silent intersection of that empty street, Helena realized the fear she carried wasn't just of the man who had come back, but of the version of herself that was beginning to emerge, after years buried under layers of forgetting. The street around them seemed suspended in stillness, as if the very air were waiting for something to happen. Streetlights flickered in irregular pulses, and the wind swirled fallen leaves across the asphalt in brief spirals that disappeared as quickly as they formed. The night, once merely cold, now carried a heaviness that clung to the skin. For the first time, Helena felt something inside her begin to unstick, not a memory surfacing, but something deeper, an old instinct awakening. So a version of herself she hadn't seen since the forgetting, struggling to rise through the cracks. Gabriel walked beside her with slow, deliberate steps. There was no rush, only caution. He scanned the street as if expecting something to move just beyond the shadows. And at the same time, Helena sensed he was fighting something inside him. Guilt, maybe, or fear, or the weight of a truth he hadn't yet dared to speak. "You said it all started when I almost died," she said, breaking the silence. That from that night on I wanted to erase everything. But you never explained how that kind of decision was even possible, how someone just deletes memories like that. Gabriel exhaled slowly, but didn't answer right away. He looked toward the approaching corner, as if choosing the exact spot where the truth could finally be opened. "Let's sit for a minute," he said. They walked to a nearby bench, partially lit by a leaning lamppost. The wood was cold beneath them, and Helena felt a shiver run up her spine as she sat. Gabriel took the seat beside her, but kept a respectful distance, as if afraid to touch her, not physically, but emotionally. Helena crossed her legs, rested her elbows on her knees, and clasped her hands together, bracing herself. "You want to know how the memories were erased," Gabriel said at last. "But that's not the hard part. The hard part is understanding why it had to be done." "Then tell me," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. Gabriel ran a hand down his face, a worn, tired gesture. The gesture of someone who'd carried a truth too long. "After that night, the night he hurt you for the first time, you tried to walk away for good. He disappeared for a few weeks, and during that time you and we started getting close again." Helena watched him carefully. She didn't remember getting close. But there was something in the way he said it, something that stirred an emotional echo in her, like a part of her still recognized that version of her life. "You didn't want to be alone," he continued, "but you didn't want to admit it either. And I did everything I could to give you a piece of yourself back, to remind you of who you were before him." She looked away for a second, her heart beating unevenly. "I mattered to you," Gabriel said, barely above a whisper. "More than you ever let yourself remember." Helena didn't respond. A strange pressure built in her chest, not pain, but something quieter, something like emotional curiosity, like recognition without full understanding. "Then he came back," Gabriel said, "and you realized everything you'd rebuilt was only surface. He didn't let you move on. He'd show up, he'd text, call, watch from a distance, always out of reach of the law, but close enough to remind you." "That's why I wanted to forget," Helena asked, eyes down, "not just because of him." She looked up, and Gabriel looked back with a mix of guilt, sorrow, and tenderness. "The decision to forget," he said slowly, "wasn't just to free you from him, it was to free you from yourself." The words hit Helena like a quiet impact. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice tense. Gabriel looked at the ground as if afraid to meet her eyes while saying it. "Because after everything that happened, you didn't recognize yourself anymore. You didn't trust your emotions, your decisions, even your perception of reality. You second-guessed everything. It was like you were living inside a body that didn't match your mind." "I was broken?" she asked. "You were shattered in too many places," Gabriel replied, "and anytime something reminded you of him, even vaguely, it was like you were back in that night again." Helena closed her eyes. For the first time, a sharp visual fragment cut through her mind. A dark room, a locked door, a shadow. A scream caught in her throat. Uncontrolled breathing. A hand on the floor. Blood. She gasped. Her eyes flew open and found Gabriel watching her. "You remembered something?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "Not everything, just pieces. But I felt it." "That's how it begins," Gabriel said. "That's how it comes back." Helena ran her hands down her face, trying to sort through the chaos inside her. "And how did I erase it all?" she asked. Gabriel looked at her with the weight of a memory he wished he could forget. "You asked for help, but not the usual kind, not therapy, not a psychologist. You wanted something immediate, something that would take the weight off without forcing you to face it." "Hypnosis?" Helena guessed. He shook his head. "Deeper, more radical." She swallowed hard. "You went through an experimental procedure. It wasn't legally approved. It was a mix of methods, sensory stimulation, induced dissociative states, guided repression of emotional memory. It didn't erase the facts. It erased the emotional connection to them. Helena instantly felt cold. "And you let me," she whispered. Gabriel closed his eyes for a beat, as though just recalling it caused pain. "I begged you not to. Told you that you needed to face it, not bury it. But you were desperate. You cried non-stop, told me if you remembered him for even a single day, you'd die." Silence. Something inside Helena vibrated, not from the story itself, but from deep within her body, as if each word brushed against a wound she hadn't known was still there. "And why was your memory erased too?" she asked, her voice cracking. Gabriel looked away, unable to hide his own vulnerability. "Because I was tied to all of it. I was the one who saw you in that hospital, the one you confided in. The place where you collapsed. In your mind, I was fused with the worst moment of your life. But you helped me." "Yes, and that's exactly why you wanted to forget me." Helena didn't understand right away. "You believed," Gabriel continued, "that as long as you remembered me, you'd never be free of him, that I'd always be the thread pulling you back into the trauma, that my presence would be a permanent reminder of the pain." Helena's expression turned blank, not from confusion, but because she was starting to understand too well. "And you agreed to that," she said, stunned with a flicker of restrained anger. "I did," Gabriel said, "because I loved you." The words were so raw, so unpolished, Helena nearly flinched. There was no performance in them, no manipulation, only history. Lived, felt, lost. Something they had been together, even if she didn't remember. Gabriel continued. "You asked never to see me again. Asked that nothing, absolutely nothing, remind you of the life you had before the procedure. And you obeyed. I obeyed because I thought it was the right thing. I thought if you could find peace, even peace built on forgetting, then disappearing would be worth it." Something warm gathered behind Helena's eyes. She didn't cry, but she was close. "So why did you come back?" she asked. Gabriel wiped the sweat from his brow with a thumb, trying to steady himself. "Because he came back first." Helena's hand flew to her chest. "That man," Gabriel nodded. "He always believed you belonged to him. He never accepted rejection. When you vanished and when you erased everything, he became obsessed. Tried to find you. I kept my distance, but I watched from afar. I knew he'd try again, and I knew when he did, you'd have no defense. So you thought you needed to protect me." "I didn't think, Helena." Gabriel looked straight at her. "I knew." His certainty wrapped around her like a net. "And why now?" she asked. "Why is everything starting to come back?" Gabriel exhaled slowly, heavily. "Because your body and your mind can't keep holding the erasure. You tried to bury it, but even burials have limits. Sometimes what must be remembered finds its way back." Helena looked toward the empty street. Even the silence now had a different texture. "So what's the twist in all this?" she asked, not even knowing why she used that word. Gabriel hesitated. When he spoke, it was a grave whisper, as if uttering something forbidden. "The twist is that you didn't just erase his memory, or mine. You erased a part of yourself." The world tilted around Helena. "I changed? You transformed completely. The procedure didn't just take memories. It took reactions, impulses, how you loved, how you feared, how you took risks. It altered your very personality, because that was the only way you could survive." A knot rose in her throat. "So who I am now isn't who I was." Gabriel shook his head. "You are the surviving version of yourself." The sentence hit like an unabsorbable truth. Helena placed both hands over her face, struggling to breathe. "Then why did you come for me now?" she asked, voice muffled behind her hands. "Because you're remembering, despite everything. Because he is back. And because you're about to discover that the biggest threat isn't him." She slowly lowered her hands. "Then who is it?" she asked. Gabriel stared at her with painful clarity. "You." Helena didn't answer. She didn't have time, because in that exact moment something moved in the shadows behind them, and the story she was trying to piece back together finally began to converge with what had been buried for years. The shadow that crossed the edge of darkness behind them wasn't just movement. It wasn't light distortion, nor a trick of the mind. It was dense enough to shift the air itself. Helena felt it before she saw it, her body reacting as if it recognized an ancient threat, something buried but still alive deep enough to never be truly forgotten. Gabriel turned first, his body immediately taking on the stance of someone ready to shield. The street was nearly empty, yet suddenly it felt smaller, compressed by the walls and shadows crawling at the edges of their vision. "He's here," Gabriel whispered, not with surprise but with grim confirmation. Helena instinctively took half a step back. Her fingers trembled, not just with fear, but with an unsettling sense of déjà vu, as if this very moment had happened before, in a past her conscious mind couldn't reach, but her body remembered with brutal clarity. "Who is he?" she asked, voice barely holding together. "Tell me. Now." Gabriel didn't answer right away. His eyes scanned every corner of the street, tracking even the smallest movements. The tension in his face wasn't just worry, it was the look of someone facing a moment he'd feared and expected for years. "He'll reveal himself when he's ready," Gabriel said. "And when he does, you'll remember, whether you want to or not." A shiver ran down Helena's spine. Then a figure stepped out of the darkness. He didn't run. He didn't rush. He walked, like someone who had no need to hide. No need to hurry. No fear of consequence. At first, Helena couldn't see his face. The streetlight split the shadows just enough to conceal his features. But it wasn't his face that stopped her cold. It was his silhouette. Tall, broad shoulders, movements too slow, too calm for mere intimidation. He had the kind of presence that filled space with a quiet violence. Gabriel moved forward, blocking part of Helena's view. "Stay behind me," he said, eyes locked on the man. But Helena didn't move. Her body refused. She was frozen, caught somewhere between terror and an aching, terrible recognition. The figure stopped a few meters from them. The streetlight finally touched his face, and Helena's stomach twisted like she'd been punched from the inside. She knew him not by memory, by sensation, by some primal echo. He was the man from the car, the one who'd watched her from across the street days ago, the one whose presence made her feel nausea and familiarity all at once. Gabriel took another step forward. "You shouldn't be here," he said. The man smiled, slow, cold, deliberate. Then his gaze found Helena. "She called me." The words hit Helena like ice, because deep down, something in her reacted, not with denial, but with a quiet, horrifying tremor. "I didn't call anyone," she said, stepping back involuntarily. "You did," he replied, voice too low not to carry a threat, "in the only way you know how." Gabriel moved again, every muscle in his body taut. "She doesn't want you here," he said firmly. The man laughed, a short, joyless sound. "She's never known what she wants." A storm of sensations tore through Helena's chest. His voice, it pulled on invisible strings inside her, strings she had tried to cut, to bury, and yet here they were, responding against her will. When he stepped slightly closer, her breathing quickened, not just from fear, but because something inside her responded automatically, and that terrified her. "Stop," she said, louder than she meant. "Don't come any closer." His expression shifted slightly, like he was savoring her reaction. "You still remember the tone you use when you're angry with me," he said. "Even now." Helena trembled. "I don't remember you," she said, trying to sound certain. "Not yet," he murmured. Gabriel's posture changed, less defensive now, more confrontational. "If you touch her, I swear." The man raised a hand, cutting him off. "You've made threats before, Gabriel." "You never followed through." Gabriel clenched his fists. "You destroyed her." "She destroyed herself," the man replied, eyes locked on Helena. "I just showed her who she really was." Helena's heart froze. She felt torn between two selves, the woman who wanted to run, and the one who wanted to understand, the one who remembered nothing, and the one who knew that voice. "Who are you to me?" she whispered. He smiled. "I'm everything you tried to forget." The ground beneath her seemed to shift. "I didn't leave because you hated me," he said, stepping closer. "I left because you loved me, in a way you couldn't control." Her mind sparked. They weren't memories, not exactly. They were sensations. Thick nights, sharp arguments, hands gripping too tight, kisses that came before words that wounded. But everything was distorted, torn, fragmented. There was no storyline, only emotional echoes. "You're lying," Helena said, though there was fear beneath her voice. "I'm reminding you," he answered. Gabriel stepped forward, blocking the direct line between them. "That's enough. She doesn't need to hear any of this." The man tilted his head. "Because you're afraid she'll remember the part where she chose me." Helena froze. It was as if the air itself had turned into a physical barrier between them. "You were never her choice," Gabriel snapped. "You were a cage." The man smiled, not in defiance, but with that dangerous confidence of someone who believes his own version of reality. "We're all cages for someone." Helena's breathing sped up, and the feeling rising inside her wasn't fear. It wasn't anger. It was something deeper, almost primal. And that was the moment she realized, horrified, the older version of herself, the one from before the erasure, was trying to surface. And that version recognized this man with an intensity Helena, as she was now, couldn't understand and didn't want to. Gabriel sensed the shift. "Helena," he said, eyes locked on her, "don't listen to him. You can't listen to him." "Of course she can," the man replied. "I'm talking about her, the real one." "She is not you," Gabriel shouted, as if fighting something invisible. The man laughed. "You don't get to decide that." Helena pressed a hand to her chest, fighting a feeling of internal collapse. It was as if two forces were tearing at her memories from opposite sides. Every word from the stranger triggered emotional recollections. Every word from Gabriel fought to protect her from herself. She fell to her knees, not from physical pain but from psychological impact. The man stepped toward her. Gabriel moved fast, blocking him and shoving him back. "Stay away from her." The man tilted his head, amused. "You can't stop me." "I can," Gabriel said, "and I will." They stared each other down, and in the silence between them, Helena felt the weight of a history she didn't remember, but existed like scar tissue. And then the stranger said something that ripped the ground out from under her. "She didn't just erase you, Gabriel. She erased herself, because she was afraid of what she'd do to me." Helena's eyes widened. "What?" she breathed. Gabriel shut his eyes for a moment, and that moment said everything he knew, he had always known. "Tell me," Helena shouted. The man stepped close enough that his voice reached her clearly. "That night," he said softly, "I wasn't the one who almost killed her." Helena's entire body went cold. "It was her who almost killed me." Gabriel immediately turned toward her, cupping her face gently as if trying to anchor her to the present. "Don't listen to him, Helena. Don't." But Helena was already far away. Too far, because in that instant, a memory broke through. Not a fragment, not an echo. A full memory. The cold floor, the blood, the shattered bottle in her hand. The fear, not of dying, the fear of killing. She released a tiny sound, half sob, half shock. Gabriel pulled her into his chest, trying to shield her from the avalanche inside. "It wasn't your fault," he whispered. "You were fighting for your life." The man smiled at the scene. "She didn't erase what I did," he said. "She erased what she did." The truth hit Helena like a tidal wave. Her hands shook, her eyes burned, her breath stuttered, because now she remembered the most terrifying thing, that she had been capable of hurting, of crossing a line that terrified her, and that her mind had erased it all to protect her, not from the pain she endured, but from the pain she caused. The man took a final step back. "You were never afraid of me, Helena," he said. "You were afraid of yourself, and with that he turned, disappearing once again into the dark. Gabriel kept holding Helena, as if the world was about to collapse on top of her. And for the first time since all of this began, she cried. Not for the moment, not for Gabriel, not for the man. She cried for the truth, the unbearable truth emerging from the shadows. The version of her she had buried was coming back, and now there was no escaping it. Saissimbuturi, the wind sweeping through the street, carried more than cold that night. It carried exhaustion, regret, fragments of old memories, and above all, the crushing sense that nothing ahead would be easy. Gabriel still held her against his chest as the man vanished into the night. No rush, just a trail of unbearable truths left behind. Helena said nothing. She couldn't. Her body was so tense that each breath felt like a war between holding on to the present and surrendering to the past. A past finally breaking the surface. Her eyes burned, not from the tears, but from the effort to see who she had once been before the forgetting. Gabriel remained still, every part of him dedicated to keeping her from falling apart. There was silence in everything, in the still trees, the dark windows of nearby buildings, the empty sidewalk. The whole city seemed suspended, waiting for Helena's next move. "I remember," she finally said, her voice raw. "I remember him, and I remember me. Not everything, but pieces." Gabriel loosened the embrace just enough to see her face. There was pain there, and something more, a return. The Helena that had lived before the erasure was there, in her eyes, in the way her body held a new weight. "What do you remember?" he asked gently. Helena wiped her face, brushing away the tears. She coughed softly, trying to clear the knot in her throat. "I remember the broken bottle," she said, "the panic, the room, the locked door. And I remember the fear, not the regular kind, not just of him, but of me, of what I might do, of crossing a line I couldn't come back from." Gabriel listened without interruption. There was no judgment in his face, only sorrow for what she had to relive. "You were fighting for your life," he said, steady. "That's all." Helena held her arm, either from the cold or to steady a tremor inside. "But She couldn't finish. "You reacted like anyone would in desperation," Gabriel said. "It was the first time you saw who he really was. There was never any blame on you that night." Helena slowly shook her head. "But I saw myself, and I was scared of what I could do, what I was about to do, and that destroyed something inside me, Gabriel." Her honesty was almost tangible. A thread from the past had returned, impossible to ignore. Gabriel sat beside her on the bench, not too close, but close enough. He knew this was the most delicate moment of all, not a moment to protect her, but to understand her. "That night was the break," he said, "and you spent months pretending it never happened, but memories don't vanish. They start to rot you from within." Helena closed her eyes, letting the cold breeze touch her face. "I remember something after," she whispered. "The hospital, it's blurry, the white light, and I remembered you got there first." "I did," said Gabriel. "You called me. You said you needed me. You said you thought you were going to die." His voice trembled slightly. Helena felt something tear open inside her chest. "Why didn't I remember that?" she asked, almost pleading. "Because you erased not only what he did," Gabriel answered, "but the part of you who lived it. You erased the version of you who suffered, who fought, who survived. You thought it would be better to live without that part." Helena let her body fall back, resting her head on the bench. "It didn't work," she said. "I became someone else. But the shadow never left." "No," Gabriel said softly. "Because no one can erase themselves. You can put it to sleep, push it far away, but anything that powerful always finds a way back." Helena looked up at the sky. It was dark, but there, between the clouds, was a sliver of moonlight. "I erased you too," she said quietly. "You did," Gabriel replied, not looking away, "because I reminded you of him, because I witnessed all your pain. Even if I wasn't the cause, I carried its reflection. and still you came back. I came back because I loved you then, and because I still do." Helena said nothing. It was a sentence she wasn't ready to hear, but somehow it filled a part of her she didn't even know had been empty. "I don't know how to react to that," Helena whispered. "You don't have to react now," Gabriel said softly. "Just listen." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was dense with meaning. But before Helena could speak again, she heard it, footsteps behind them. Fast, metal clinking against pavement, the echo of someone approaching. She froze. Gabriel turned instantly. It was him, the man, the shadow from the past. But this time, he wasn't smiling. He wasn't calm. He wasn't in control. There was rage on his face, instability in his eyes. Something far closer to fury than reason. "You shouldn't have told her," the man said, walking toward them. "She didn't need to know. It was better that way." "Better for you," Gabriel shot back, rising, "because as long as she didn't remember, you got to keep the version of her that served you." The man ignored him, his eyes locked onto Helena. "Look at me," he said. Helena didn't move. "I said look at me." Gabriel stepped between them again. The man shifted, trying to force eye contact. "You're not innocent," he said. "He wants you to believe you are, but you know better." Helena clenched her fists. "I know who I was that night," she said finally. "And it's not who you're trying to say I was." "You were angry," he snapped. "You've always been afraid of losing control. I just showed you. You never had it." Gabriel stepped in closer. "That's enough," he said. "She's not that person anymore." "That's exactly the problem," the man said. "The person she is now is a lie built on fear." Helena took a deep breath. She rose slowly from the bench. "You're wrong," she said calmly. The man's face tightened. "I didn't erase what I did because I was afraid of myself," she said. "I erased it because I was taught to be afraid of something that was never my fault." The man stepped toward her, but Gabriel grabbed his arm, stopping him. Helena continued. "You hurt me. You created the version of me that was afraid. You fed off my silence. But I survived, not because I became someone new, but because I erased you from my memory." The man's expression shifted, and for the first time since he'd appeared, he seemed to lose control. "You needed me," he said, his voice shaking. "You called me. You came to me. You cried for me." "I cried because of what you did to me," Helena said firmly, "and because of the guilt you tried to make me carry." He staggered back 2 steps, as if her words had struck something he couldn't block. Gabriel's shoulders relaxed for the first time. Helena took a step forward, not to face the man, but to face herself. "I didn't erase you," she said. "I erased the piece of me that still believed in you." The man drew in a breath, as if he wanted to say something, but the words never came. He simply looked at Helena, and maybe for the first time he truly saw her. Not the broken version, not the erased version, but the whole woman, the one who was returning. "You won't remind me of who I was with you," Helena said, "because I'm never going back there, not ever again." The man turned and just walked away. No threats, no goodbyes, no final look, as if he understood, not from defeat, but from realization, that the Helena who once belonged to him no longer existed. When silence returned, Helena finally exhaled. Gabriel stepped closer, cautiously. "You okay?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. First, she felt her body, the ground, the street, the wind. Then she looked at Gabriel, and she saw not just the man who had tried to protect her all night, but the man who had once held her hand when she lay on a hospital floor. For the first time, she took a deep breath. "I think I'm starting to stay." Gabriel smiled, not a light smile, not a victorious one. It was the kind of smile that carried weight, years of waiting, of pain, of quiet hope. Helena reached out her hand, a simple gesture, but one so meaningful it seemed to shift the air around them. Gabriel took her hand, gently, as if it were something fragile, precious. They stayed like that for several long seconds, two survivors of an unfinished story. Helena stepped a little closer. "I want to remember the rest," she said. "I know," Gabriel replied, "and I'll be here when it happens." She lifted her eyes to his with a raw honesty that didn't need explaining. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Gabriel touched her face, lightly, delicately, like he was asking permission just to exist in that moment. "I never had a choice," he said. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was gentle, the kind of silence that falls between two people who've finally arrived where they were always meant to be. The street looked brighter, the wind felt softer, and for the first time in a long, long while, the world felt like it fit inside her. Days later, Helena walked the same streets, same coat, same bag, but not the same body. Something inside her stood taller, clearer, whole. She met Gabriel in front of a quiet little cafe. They'd agreed to meet there. He looked at her with that same steady gaze, not demanding, not impatient, just present. She walked up to him, stopped right in front. "Now," she said softly but firmly. "Keep looking." His face softened, not because he expected it, but because he understood what it meant. Helena smiled, a new smile, or maybe a very old one, the kind of smile that carries a story behind it, a long one she was finally ready to finish. And as they stepped inside the cafe together, she felt something she never imagined she'd feel again. She had once asked him to stop looking, but that was before she understood what his gaze had always meant. And you, watching this from wherever you are you standing in the past you're trying to forget, or the future you're finally ready to face? If you want to continue, just ask. The next story begins whenever you're ready.